There is a U.S. Navy ship so large it cannot fit through the Panama Canal. There is one so expensive that a single hull cost more than the annual defense budget of most countries. There is one that was designed around a weapon system the Navy canceled, leaving the ship with guns it cannot fire. And there is one that has 8 nuclear reactors. Just one. Nobody ever built another like it. The United States Navy has spent the last 80 years constructing some of the largest, strangest, and most expensive warships in human history. Some of them ruled the oceans for half a century. Some of them were obsolete before they were finished. All of them were built on the same idea that no expense was too great to maintain American naval dominance. What do you think is the biggest U.S. Navy ship ever built? Drop your answer in the comments below. The answer is probably not what you expect. Most people picture a U.S. Navy ship a certain way: a gray destroyer in a movie, a carrier in a parade of nations, a submarine surfacing in a documentary. That is the surface of what the United States has built. The reality operates on a different scale entirely. The U.S. Navy currently operates roughly 290 deployable battle force ships. The combined tonnage of the American fleet exceeds the next 13 navies on Earth combined. Inside that fleet are vessels so large, so expensive, and so unusual that no other country has ever attempted to build anything like them. Some succeeded brilliantly. Some failed spectacularly. Some were scrapped before they ever fired a shot in anger. This list focuses on the 5 biggest and most absurd surface ships the United States has ever fielded. Not the most famous, not the most decorated, the largest by displacement, and the strangest by design, by cost, or by mission. We are counting them down from number 5 to number 1. Most navies in the world could not afford to build any one of the 5 ships on this list. The United States built all of them. The 4 Iowa-class battleships, Iowa, New Jersey, Missouri, and Wisconsin, were the last battleships built by the United States Navy. By the time they were completed, the aircraft carrier had already replaced the battleship as the dominant warship in the world. The Navy used them anyway, then recommissioned them twice. Each ship was 270 meters long. Each one displaced approximately 58,000 tons fully loaded. Each one carried 9 16-inch guns capable of firing a 2,700-pound shell over 24 miles. They were the largest, fastest, and most heavily armored battleships ever built by the United States Navy. They entered service during the Second World War. They were retired, then brought back for the Korean War. Retired again, then brought back a second time in the 1980s by the Reagan administration, at a moment when every other navy on Earth had given up on battleships decades earlier. By the time the last Iowa was retired for good in 1992, she was operating with fire control systems designed in the 1940s, firing shells that had been engineered before the Cold War began, in an era of cruise missiles and satellite-guided warfare. The total cost of recommissioning the 4 Iowas in the 1980s was more than $1.7 billion. They served for less than a decade after that before being retired permanently. Today, all 4 are museum ships. None of them ever engaged another battleship in combat. By the time they reached the Pacific, the era of capital ship battles was already over. The 4th ship on this list was a one-of-a-kind experiment. The USS Enterprise, hull number CVN-65, was the world's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. She was commissioned in November of 1961. She was also the only warship in human history to be powered by 8 nuclear reactors at the same time. 8. Every nuclear carrier built since has used 2. Each of her A2W reactors took the place of a conventional boiler from earlier carrier designs. They were custom built. They had to be coupled in pairs and routed to 4 steam turbines through layers of gearing, shielding, and redundant control systems. The engineering was complex. The cost was extraordinary. The Enterprise was 342 meters long, the longest aircraft carrier ever built. She displaced more than 90,000 tons fully loaded. She cost approximately $451 million in 1961 dollars, well above the Navy's original budget for the project. The overruns were severe enough that the Navy abandoned the design entirely. No other Enterprise-class carrier was ever built. She served for 51 years before being inactivated in 2012 and was formally decommissioned in 2017. To this day, no other warship has ever been built with more than 2 reactor cores. The Enterprise was not a successful design template. She was a successful one-off. Before we look at the next ship on this list, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit subscribe right now and let us keep going. The third ship on this list is technically a destroyer. The Zumwalt-class is also the strangest looking warship in the modern US Navy and the most expensive destroyer ever built. The Navy originally planned to build 32 of them. They ended up with 3. The lead ship, USS Zumwalt, was commissioned in October of 2016. Each Zumwalt is 186 meters long and displaces just under 16,000 tons when fully loaded. That is larger than most light cruisers from the Second World War. The total program cost approached $23 billion. That works out to roughly $7.5 billion per ship, more expensive than a nuclear-powered Virginia-class submarine and exceeding the original construction cost of a Nimitz-class supercarrier. Each Zumwalt was designed around 2 custom 155mm advanced gun system turrets. Those guns were supposed to fire a precision-guided shell called the Long-Range Land Attack Projectile. By the time the lead ship entered service, the cost of each shell had risen to between $800,000 and $1 million. The Navy canceled the projectile in November of 2016, the same month the ship was commissioned. The guns were left on the ships with no ammunition to fire. They have never been operational. Starting in 2023, the Navy began removing the gun systems entirely and replacing them with hypersonic missile launchers in an effort to give the ships a purpose. Would you spend $7.5 billion on a destroyer that could not fire its main guns? Tell us in the comments. The second ship on this list is not one ship. It is 10 of them. The Nimitz-class supercarriers were, until 2017, the largest warships ever built by any Navy in history. The Navy built 10 of them. 10. The lead ship, USS Nimitz, was commissioned on May 3, 1975. The 10th and final ship of the class, USS George H.W. Bush, was commissioned in January 2009. Each one is 333 meters long. Each displaces more than 100,000 tons fully loaded. Each is powered by 2 A4W nuclear reactors that do not require refueling for over 20 years. Each carries approximately 5,000 sailors and aviators. Each operates an air wing of roughly 60 aircraft. The total cost of construction for each ship was approximately $4.5 billion. Multiply that by 10 ships built across 34 years, and the Nimitz program represents one of the largest sustained naval construction efforts in human history. The lead ship, USS Nimitz, has served for more than 50 years. Originally scheduled for decommissioning in 2026, her service life was extended to March of 2027 to maintain the Navy's 11-carrier fleet. By the time she is retired, she will have outlived the entire Cold War, the Vietnam-era carriers she replaced, and most of the people who watched her commissioning. Together, the 10 Nimitz-class carriers have spent more cumulative time at sea than the entire fleets of most navies have existed. 4.5 acres of flight deck, hangar bays as tall as a 3-story building, living quarters for the population of a small town, and the Navy built 10 of them. And we arrive at number 1, the largest, most expensive, and most ambitious warship ever built in the history of human civilization. The USS Gerald R. Ford, hull number CVN-78, was commissioned on July 22, 2017. She is the lead ship of the Ford-class supercarriers. She is 337 meters long, slightly longer than a Nimitz-class carrier. She displaces approximately 100,000 tons fully loaded. The similarities to her predecessors end there. The Ford is powered by 2 new A1B nuclear reactors that generate over 100 megawatts of electrical power, more than 3 times the 30 megawatts produced by the older Nimitz-class reactors. The extra capacity was reserved for future weapons that did not yet exist when the ship was designed, including directed energy systems and lasers. The Ford was the first carrier in the world to use the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, EMALS, replacing the steam catapults that had launched every American carrier aircraft since the 1950s. She was also the first to use a new advanced arresting gear and a new dual-band radar. None of those systems worked reliably at delivery. The Ford's 11 advanced weapons elevators were the largest single embarrassment of the program. At commissioning in 2017, 9 of the 11 were non-functional. It took years to make them all operational. EMALS failed roughly once in every 75 launches during early operations. The total cost of the Ford reached $13.3 billion, making her the most expensive warship ever built by any navy in history. And yet, more Ford-class carriers are being built. The USS John F. Kennedy is scheduled to enter service in 2027. The USS Enterprise and the USS Doris Miller are both under construction. The Ford class will replace the Nimitz-class 1-for-1 across the next 2 decades. Each of these carriers will outlive almost everyone watching this video. If you could spend $13 billion on one warship, would you build one of these or 10 of something smaller? Tell us in the comments below. 5 ships, 5 ways of being absurd. Battleships built for a war that was already changing while they were on the construction ways. The only carrier in history with 8 nuclear reactors, a destroyer with guns that could not fire, 10 supercarriers that ruled the oceans for half a century, and the most expensive warship ever built. Some of these ships were brilliant achievements, some were disasters, some were both. The Iowa-class kept fighting decades after the world had moved on. The Enterprise proved that nuclear propulsion at sea was possible, and reshaped every carrier built since. The Nimitz-class became the backbone of American naval power for 50 years. The Zumwalt-class burned through $23 billion to deliver 3 ships with guns that could not fire. The Ford-class delivered the most expensive warship in history, with most of its key systems broken on the day it entered service. What every one of these ships shares is that no other country on Earth would have built them. The United States has spent the last 80 years constructing warships on a scale that has no parallel in human history. Hundreds of thousands of sailors served on these ships. Hundreds of thousands of shipyard workers, engineers, and designers built them. They are part of an era of American power that may never be repeated. If this video gave you a new respect for the strangest and largest ships the US Navy has ever built, hit the like button right now and subscribe to the channel so you never miss what we cover next. We will see you in the next one.